This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider. It's 72 years since HMT Empire Windrush arrived at Tilsbury docks in Essex. She carried around 500 passengers, mostly from the West Indies, who answered a call from the UK for people to help fill post-war labour shortages. This was the beginning of the arrival of the so-called Windrush Generation, who in 2018 were at the centre of an immigration row when at least 83 people were wrongly deported. A review published earlier this year made 30 recommendations and accused the Home Office of ignorance and thoughtlessness. To mark the day, the Prime Minister's met with members of the new Windrush working group, but is enough being done to make amends and help those affected? The Evening Standard's Matilda Mallinson spoke to Diane Abbott, who, as former Shadow Home Secretary, campaigned for the 500,000 people who came here and their descendants.
With the Windrush scandal, beyond the administrative oversights, what did it reveal about this country's attitude towards immigration in general?
The Windrush scandal didn't come out of a clear blue sky. What it reflected was the disorganisation within the Home Office, the lack of concern for people as individuals, and it was almost as if, because your skin colour was black, you almost had to prove that you were entitled to be here.
Were lessons learned from the scandal?
There was a major inquiry that was commissioned by Sajid Javid when he was Home Secretary, called Windrush Lessons Learned. But there's no sign that we've actually implemented the recommendation. I mean, the recommendations were about better training, about Home Office officials actually know more about the history of this country, the history of empire and colonialism, which is quite topical now with the Black Lives Matter events. So they commissioned a big report. It had some important recommendations, but they've yet to be implemented.
What are the most urgent things that haven't been implemented?
The Windrush Lessons Learned review made a number of recommendations. One was better training and education for Home Office officials in terms of the history of this country and colonialism and so on. But it also called for an immigration commissioner in order to have someone very close to the top of government who would be concerned with the welfare of migrants. And that appointment has not been made.
Would you say there's anything we have learned from the Windrush scandal?
I think the general public has understood how terrible some of the treatment that is dished out to migrants by the Home Office is, because I don't think they understood before. And I think the next scandal waiting to happen is what's happening to EU migrants trying to get their status settled. The Home Office has some really systemic problems in the way that it deals with its clients. But at least the Windrush scandal has made more people aware of that.
What is today all about?
Today it's about people like my mother and father who came to this country in the 1950s. My mother came on a boat, not the actual Windrush boat, but another boat. My father, who was a bit impatient like me, came on an aeroplane. But they came to help the mother country. As far as they're concerned, they were coming to the mother country, and they were always proud to help, to work. My mother was a nurse, my father worked in a factory. They were so proud of being British, so proud to help the mother country. And this day is about that generation, what they gave, what they contributed, and how they should be honoured today.
The Home Office says the Home Secretary has been clear the mistreatment of the Windrush generation by successive governments was completely unacceptable. She will make a response to the review before the common summer recess. It also says the compensation scheme has offered claimants more than £640,000 in its first year, and 12,000 people have had their right to remain in the UK confirmed by the Commonwealth Citizens Task Force. Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.